Viewer discretion is advised.
On a lonely hill deep in the woods stood an abandoned house. The house was previously occupied by an unnamed elderly woman. It was said that all roads leading in and out of the house were all washed out in the early 90s, and the woman who was living there could not get into town for food and had no family to check on her. In her own desperation, she gritted her teeth, picked up the bone saw, and started severing her hands, then consumed them afterwards. Having consumed her own hands, she was then unable to free herself from the cellar, which she had accidentally fell into while searching for insects or vermin to eat. And eventually, she was trapped and died in the cellar. And this is the house in question? Yep, now get in there. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today, we bring you a SCP Foundation Euclid Class Object, SCP-3173. SCP-3173, also known as the House on Hadley Hill, is a small access door in the cellar beneath an abandoned house near Mount Zion, Georgia, USA. Access to the house was limited after heavy rains in 1993 washed away all the roads leading to the structure, forcing individuals who wished to access the house to climb the steep incline of the ridge behind it, which was called the Hadley Hill. If 4173 is left open for a period of time, persons nearby will hear a voice coming from within the wall past the door. It will inquire why they took so long to come, and will then ask to see their hand. It will ask to bring it closer, as it has trouble seeing. If the subject puts their hand through the door, it will be severed at the wrist, as if by a sharp metal instrument. Afterwards, the voice will thank the subject and assure them not to worry about it, as it will be replaced. Sometime later, a decaying, elderly hand will appear somewhere on or in the subject's body. While the hand is fully functional, regardless of where it appears on the body, it will continue to decay and putrefy until it eventually becomes bone. This hand will share no genetic similarities with the subject. The hand's proximity to the severed wrist appears to be directly related to how polite the subject was when interacting with the voice within 4173. Subjects who experience this phenomenon often report feelings of uncertainty and paranoia when observing the hand. Any subjects who refuse to put their hands into the door after engaging the voice will be violently pulled through it if they attempt to leave. Due to the obvious disparity in size between the door and the subject's body, it will result in shattering, splitting, and spilling of the body as it is being pulled through. After all interactions with 4173, the door will close on its own. A test was conducted by Dr. Andrews. A D-class subject was briefed with a local folklore concerning the house, and then sent in to explore it. And thus, the urban legend surrounding this house was appropriately referred to as Old Hadley. The entrance of the cellar was no more concealed than the main door of the house. From the looks of it, it has seen some visitors prior to Dr. Andrews' test. As he approached, he heard faint sounds of fingers scratching and rubbing against the walls, which irritated him greatly, as well as an elderly woman's voice speaking to him from beneath the ground. The D-class was frozen in place upon hearing the voice. "What's wrong? Why aren't you moving? Talk to me." The voice. "I hear someone talking to me. It says she's lonely and hungry." "It's all right. Just go in there. You'll be fine." The D-class slowly pushed the door. It opened with heavy creaks. He stood hesitating in front of the open door. With the sun setting behind him, his shadow casted ominously on the steps. Beyond it, a pitch-black void. It was dark, but the subject's vision was slowly adapting to his surroundings. The cellar was wide, and the weak fading sunlight could only illuminate the grimy floor in front of the entrance steps. He groped his way towards his left as instructed by Dr. Andrews, and eventually he reached a small door. What's in there? Nothing. Just open it. Reluctantly, the D-class opened the door and poked his head through it. Immediately, his face was pushed right up against cobwebs and dirt. Compelled by his fear of the unknown, he quickly pulled out his head. Just then, he caught a glance of something moving past the door opening. "I thought you said there's nothing down here." "Nothing down there that can hurt you if you follow my instructions." The voice of the elderly woman has returned, but this time it came from inside the door. It was asking the D-class what took him so long, almost as if he was expected to be there. and then asked him to get closer, and it couldn't see him clearly. What do I do? Just do as you're told. You want to get out of this alive, do you not? He inched closer anxiously. The voice then asked that he put his hand through the door. I am lonely. Please let me feel your hand. Let me know that you're really there, the voice said to him. Sir, please let me out. I don't want to be here anymore. If you back out now, you'll face punishment for insubordination when we're back to the Foundation. And trust me, they take these things very seriously. I don't care. I just want out of here. Anything has got to be better than whatever the hell this door is. Do you know what'll happen to you if you run away now? No, not with the Foundation. I'm talking about now with the door. Check your tablet. A new recording was sent to his tablet. It was a recorded footage of a man conversing with the same voice behind the door. It was making the same requests. The road was out. I had to find another way up. What? Oh, okay. What? No way I'm sticking my arm in there. I am out of here. Just as the man turned around, he was suddenly pulled towards the door and was forced through the tight opening. He struggled to get out, but to no avail. His back was jackknifed and bones were shattered and exposed as he was being pulled through. Blood splattered all around the door and the ground. When the D-Class looked back at the door in horror, he could make out faint smudges of blood stain that perhaps the Foundation crew failed to clean properly before sending him here, the very same room where the man had died brutally. Jesus! That man! This room! No way! Yes way, sir. Feel like backing out now, champ? Can't you do something with this now, please? Well, I'm telling you to do what you're told, or be another statistic. Damn it, damn it! All right. He calmed himself and slowly extended his hand into the door. He waited anxiously for a moment. He shuddered as he felt a frail, cold hand slowly touching him. He couldn't see what's at the other side of the door, as if he had offered his hand as a sacrifice into the black void. The voice thanked him jubilantly for his gift. Gift? What do you mean? Huh? With a sudden jerk, the D-Class was pulled against the door. He could feel a cold hand gripping his tightly. As he struggled, the voice became increasingly agitated, condemning him for being rude and ungrateful, that he has had his gift for far too long, and that it no longer belongs to him now. What do you mean by that? What are you gonna do? Ah! A sharp pain shot through his body as he felt something ripping his arm. Eventually, he was released from the door. His wrist was severed with a clean cut and was bleeding profusely. The voice, much more cordial now, praised him for his gift and told him that he was given a gift of her own in return. The door then closed on its own with a loud bang that echoed across the cellar, leaving the D-Class lying on his own pool of blood, seeping profusely from his severed wrist. Shortly after, an extraction team entered the cellar and removed the D-Class. He was then moved to the Site 94 infirmary. After 2 days, a large pustulous growth began to emerge from the right side of the D-Class's head. He died shortly thereafter on the way to the Site Trauma Center. During the autopsy, it was discovered that the growth was a decaying, elderly hand. It had appeared between his brain and skull. It broke through the skull as it grew and was putting enormous pressure on his brain. The hand continued to clutch and claw at the brain for several hours after death. When Dr. Andrews heard about the subject's death, he only let out a sigh and said, that's a shame. Oh well, at least now we know what to do about it, which is nothing. All right, lock that place down. "352 will first remove and eat the limbs of her prey to prevent it from wandering away, and then take several days to fully devour the rest of it. Humans have been observed to still be in a euphoric state and have no knowledge of the outside world, even as they suffer the loss of limbs and other bodily tissue. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today we bring you SCP Foundation Keter Class Object SCP-352. SCP-352, also known as Baba Yaga, appears to be an incredibly old, emaciated woman of indeterminate age and race. 352 speaks Old Russian, but with an accent and dialect that makes it even harder to understand and translate. 352 usually does not converse with any of the members of the SCP Foundation, but when she does, her words come off as threats of revenge or bodily harm. 352 has never identified herself by any name, and due to her aggressive nature, it has been impossible to determine any background information. SCP-352 possesses a level of strength and speed much higher than what should be possible for a person of her perceived age and physical dimensions, and has been shown moving loads in excess of 200 kilograms with little physical strain, and moving at speeds in excess of 70 kilometers per hour. 352 can recover from wounds that would be lethal to a human being, including decapitation and disemboweling. This regeneration can take between several days to several weeks, depending on severity. Internally, 352 appears to be a normal human woman, with muscles, bones, and organs in a state consistent with her advanced age. SCP-352 is capable of growing very thin, hair-like strands from any part of her body, apparently at will. These strands can grow several meters in an hour and appear to be at least partially under the control of 352. They have been observed crawling along floors and up walls and other structures. These hairs are clear and nearly invisible to the naked eye, and appear to be slightly weaker than standard human hair. The strands are also coated in a thin layer of chemical enzyme identical to the enzyme in the saliva of 352. SCP-352 produces an enzyme that is most concentrated in the saliva and hair, but is present in all bodily tissues of 352. How it is produced and its exact chemical makeup are unknown. This enzyme reacts when contact with human tissue and rapidly attacks the nervous system. Anyone who comes into contact with the enzyme will experience symptoms almost immediately, which include hallucinations, euphoria, suppression of cognitive or logical thinking, and suppression of pain receptors. This state will persist for several days if the exposure to the enzyme is mild, and can become permanent with high exposure. Unfortunately, bites from 352 will lead to high exposure in 99.9% of cases. SCP-352 appears to subsist on a carnivorous diet, with a strong preference for human flesh. 352 will create a web of hair and wait for prey to become exposed to the enzyme and become more docile. Once she has her prey within her grasp, 352 will first remove and eat the limbs of her prey to prevent it from wandering away, and then take several days to fully devour the rest of it. Humans have been observed to still be in a euphoric state and have no knowledge of the outside world, even as they suffer the loss of limbs and other bodily tissue. SCP-352 prefers any type of human flesh over any other type of meat. While 352 kills and eats any human that she comes across, she prefers to feed on children between the ages of 0 to 2. After observation of 352 highly elevated levels of cooperation and a reduced tendency to attack staff while consuming flesh of this type, a possible alteration in the current diet is being considered. Personnel who works at 352's containment site requested the use of SCP-604 and SCP-1680 as a more efficient food source for 352. SCP-604 is a set of tableware and dishes. Some are studded with diamonds and rubies, and some are made from fine materials such as porcelain and crystal. Whenever an edible solid is placed onto one of the plates or a liquid is poured into one of the drink vessels, the food will transform into human flesh, or the nearest equivalent organ, body part, or fluid. For example, fleshy steaks will turn into cuts from the thigh, and red wine or juices into human blood. If 604 is used as 352's food source, there is no need to sacrifice innocent human infants. On the other hand, SCP-1680 is a collection of identical humanoid entities. Through genetic testing, 1680 has been determined to be an exact replica of Tyler Buchanan, an 8-year-old boy declared missing on the 11th of February 2007. Instances of 1680 are 137 centimeters in height and 38.5 kilograms in mass upon acquisition. Each instance of SCP-1680 believes itself to be Tyler Buchanan and possesses identical memories up to the day of his disappearance. Genetic testing has concluded that each instance is genetically identical to one another and to the original Tyler Buchanan. Each instance of 1680 demonstrates extreme emotional distress when exposed to other copies of 1680. However, due to unknown reason, the request for using 604 and 1680 is currently still pending for approval from the project director. SCP-352 was discovered in a southern Russian town. Reports of an enchanted forest and a witch who had caused several deaths were initially ignored, until reports of the witch being found and captured began to surface. When Foundation agents responded and headed out to investigate, the town was found deserted. Several bodies were found in varying states of decomposition, and blood trails appeared to show many more bodies being dragged into the enchanted forest. The Foundation agents were able to capture 352, but they had suffered major casualties due to SCP-352's attack and exposure to the enzyme. A large amount of hair was recovered as well, and is believed to be the cause of many exposure incidents, with contact being attributed to spiderwebs or an agent's own hair, and not reported until hallucinations manifested. After the successful capture of 352, this old lady was then put into a containment area that is to remain sealed at all times. No human interaction is allowed with 352. All interaction should be carried out via robot or other remote means. If human interaction become necessary, full hazmat containment protocol should be observed, and full hazmat suit should be worn at all times. In addition, security lines must be attached to all personnel. Should any personnel begin to exhibit erratic behavior, they are to be immediately removed from the containment area via the security lines. Any staff reporting hallucinations after interaction with 352 or her hair are to immediately be placed under quarantine. Any staff working in or around the containment area must submit to random psychological and physical testing. Anyone found to be contaminated will be placed into immediate quarantine. Staff attacked by SCP-352 may only be recovered if they have not been bitten by 352. 352 is to be fed only once a week. Feeding will be discontinued for 1 month if 352 attacks any personnel. Although 352's containment area is always sealed, but one time, SCP-3783-1 instances managed to break in, and 2 of which had interacted with SCP-352. SCP-3783-1 instances are mutated biological organisms after entering SCP-3783. 3783 is a single-roomed log cabin that is located in the wilderness of Siberia. Inside it is decorated with furs, has 1 rocking chair, a fireplace, a wardrobe, a chest, and a cauldron. It has 2 windows on the sides and a single wooden door allowing for entry. There were rumors saying that 3783 is 352's cottage, hence the interaction between 3783-1 instances and 352 was very peaceful and strangely loving. The following transcript is from surveillance footage. Begin log. SCP-352 is sitting at the corner of its containment chamber. After 40 seconds, a vent that led into the chamber suddenly burst open, which 2 3783-1 instances crawl out of. Simultaneously, other 3783-1 instances were attacking from Gate A. One instance resembled a gastropod with 2 arm-like appendages. It quickly moves to the door, and a bulbous sac on its back began to expand and bursts, covering the door with a thick mucus. The second instance was feline and resembled a bearded dragon, which moves towards SCP-352. The instance had in its mouth what appears to be a human fetus, which it places on the floor in front of SCP-352. SCP-352 reaches for the fetus and begins to devour it. SCP-352 then pats the instance's head. The instance and SCP-352 appear to briefly converse, before SCP-352 stands and moves towards the instance. SCP-352 kneels down and appears to whisper to the instance. Instance then nods its head and returns into the vent, as SCP-352 stands idly while facing the camera for the remainder of the footage. End log. The instance was later found at Provisional Site 78 within SCP-3783's chamber.
it was found deceased in front of SCP-3783 and was buried in a clump of dirt. Viewer discretion is advised.
She woke up in a dark place. It smelled of rot and urine. Before she could ascertain her location, the half-wolf, half-human pressed up right in front of her, examining intently with one side of its face. A horrible sight with uncanny human features laid across a canvas of flesh. She remembered, it all happened so fast. The creature appeared out of nowhere and killed her partner. His neck was destroyed in a single bite, his torso torn apart. But somehow she was spared, but not for long, as it grabbed her face, dug its claws into her flesh, and peeled off the skin. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today we bring you a SCP Foundation Euclid class object, SCP-3165. SCP-3165, also known as Dog Teeth, is a humanoid female between the ages of 14 and 18 with severe malformation in its limbs and face. It lacks body hair and its skin is devoid of pigmentation. The right half of 3165's face is obstructed by its upper and lower mandibles, which resemble that of a wolf. Its upper mandible lacks a nose, instead giving way to a soft crater where the nasal cavity has fleshed over. The bones of its feet are extended, and its hands are twice the length of an average adult human's, with sharp fingernails that are also 3 times more durable. Since the time of its discovery, 3165's left cornea is milky white, suggesting late-stage cataracts. 3165 is incapable of producing human vocalizations. Therefore, it communicates through fractured sign language and certain beast-like guttural vocalizations. 3165 was discovered by a group of amateur paranormal investigator group in an undisclosed location in Ukraine. Local authorities were contacted but unable to contain it, prompting the Foundation to send out a recovery team. The team arrived at the ruins. A faint smell of rotting bodies and feces permeated the air. It gets more pungent as they navigated deeper into the heart of the complex. Throughout the exploration, they came across various items littered on the ground: torn clothes, dried bones, unrecognizable biological masses, and broken recording devices which can't be salvaged. The team arrived at a dead end. There, they found several objects, most notably a locket, which contained an image of a young blonde woman, which was later identified as a missing person along with her partner after a visit to Ukraine. Both individuals were then presumed to have been killed by 3165. They have also found a face that has been separated and peeled away from the head. Rough cuts were observed around the eye sockets and mouth, suggesting the use of the skin as a mask. Soon enough, they started to hear a growl. 3165 was stalking them from the shadows and had them cornered where it wanted them to be. Suddenly, 3165 pounced on the leader. Its claw ripped through his throat with ease. He was killed instantly. Panicked, the rest of the team immediately turned on their flashlights. 3165 was blinded for a moment and then pounced on its next target immediately. In the face of the onslaught, one of them fled the scene, leaving her alone. Her knees lost all strength. She fell to the ground as 3165 moved in closer to her. It examined her closely. Its claws reached for her face and started to feel around her cheeks and hair. She could feel something sharp was digging into her skin. She tried to scream, but nothing came out of her. Suddenly, the wounded teammate jumped on 3165 and jabbed a syringe full of ketamine onto its neck. Despite being heavily injured, he wouldn't let go as 3165 flailed around and clawed at him in an awkward position. Soon enough, the drug kicked in, and 3165 was immobilized. His valiant effort paid off, but unfortunately, he died soon after due to severe blood loss. A backup team arrived, and 3165 was transported into containment before the drug wore off. According to the assessment of a child psychologist, 3165 possesses the mental capacity and behaviors of a human child of roughly 6 to 7 years old and is able to understand at least 200 words of the English language. 3165 appears to prefer direct communications with females. Interactions with male personnel were met with hostility, as shown in one incident when researcher Dr. Donald attempted to interview it. Before entering the containment cell, he stopped his security details to wait outside. "But sir, the subject is highly volatile. It injured and killed some of my men." The researcher merely let out a hearty laugh and waved in dismissal. "That was because you lot went in with guns. We need to do this with love." The security head tried to interject, but the researcher turned towards the door before he could. "Watch and learn, gentlemen. Watch and learn." The security head sighed and ordered his team to set up beside the door and be ready to rush in when things go south.
Dr. Donald strode in and closed the door with a loud bang, startling 3165 from its slumber.
He greeted it with a smile and then briskly sat in front of it. But his friendly gesture was not reciprocated. Instead, 3165 let out an intense growl and pounced on him. It clawed at his torso, breaking his ribcage, and bit off huge chunks of flesh in his right arm. Donald screamed as he clawed away from it, but 3165 wouldn't let him go. The security head called his team into action with immediate efficiency. "Oh, for Christ's sake! All right, get in there!" The team went in and shot 3165 with tranquilizer rounds. It let out a yelp and momentarily went limp on top of Dr. Donald. They gently pushed 3165 away from him, and Dr. Donald was carried out of the cell. By then, he had lost all consciousness. His right arm was tore to the bone, dangling from his shoulder. It looked just as lively as Donald's expression, with his dead eyes staring blankly through his broken glasses and white foam forming around his gaping mouth. And so, Dr. Warrens, a female researcher, was assigned to the task. She entered the cell with an accompanying guard, and 3165 turned from its drawing to face Dr. Warrens. She smiled and approached 3165 with caution. It growled at her lightly and nodded its head at her feet, indicating her to sit down. She sat. When Dr. Warrens asked how 3165 was feeling, it made the sign for pretty, then girl, and then pointed towards her. Dr. Warrens thanked 3165 and it squealed in glee. It then signed hair and want towards Dr. Warrens. It stroked the side of its head as if playing with its hair. Before Dr. Warrens could assure her guard, 3165 suddenly jumped and scuttled up to her. Despite being shocked, Dr. Warrens stopped the guard from drawing his gun. 3165 played around her hair, and Dr. Warrens could feel that its claw was tugging at them lightly. Dr. Warrens then asked, "Why does it hurt people?" But it simply ignored her and continued to brush her hair. Dr. Warrens slowly pulled herself away before it reaches another hand. At this point, its growl began to sound increasingly hostile.
It signed at her hair, want, pretty, girl.
Suddenly, it reached forward and braced Dr. Warren's face in its elongated hands. It drags its hands across her face as if measuring it and to carve it out. Its claws dug into her face and began to tear the skin. Dr. Warrens screamed and pushed 3165 away with all her strength. The guard immediately fired his taser at 3165. It let out a series of yelps and dropped to the floor. Its body throbbed and pulsed from the shock. Dr. Warrens was escorted out of the cell.
When she looked back, 3165, with all its strength concentrated in one of its hands, weakly signed, pretty, girl, want. A tear slowly dripped from its eye.
Remember to check out my new animation channel, TheRubber Talks, where I share my life story, thoughts, and opinions. Just click on the link in the description to enter the Rubber's world. Before we end this video, we are proud to present these incredibly sweet pieces of fan art. A big thank you to all of you. You can now send us your fan art, and we will be more than happy to show off your best art piece in our next video. Check out our description below on how to submit. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Which SCP do you want to see in the next video, and why it is interesting? Let us know in the comment below. We will draw your story and share it with the world. Don't forget to click like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell. Please share it to your friends if you like this video. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.